The dusty streets of Weaverville, California, had never looked more desperate than they did in the summer of 1882. And Daniella Reed knew desperation better than most as she stood outside the barbershop with scissors in her trembling hands and her long chestnut hair gathered over one shoulder. She had been standing there for nearly an hour, trying to summon the courage to walk through that door and sell the only thing of value she had left. Her stomach cramped with hunger, reminding her that she had not eaten a proper meal in 3 days. The gold rush had long since faded from these Trinity County mountains, leaving behind broken dreams and desperate souls like herself. Her father had died in a mining accident 6 months ago, and her mother had succumbed to pneumonia just 2 months later, leaving Daniella alone in a world that had little mercy for single women without family or means. The barbershop door opened, and an older man with graying whiskers stepped out, eyeing her with a mixture of curiosity and pity. "You've been standing out here a while, miss. You coming in or not?" Daniella swallowed hard. "I need to sell my hair. I heard you buy it for wigs and such." The barber nodded slowly. "I do. Come on in, then." She followed him inside, her legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. The shop smelled of soap and hair tonic, and there were 2 chairs facing large mirrors. The barber gestured for her to sit, and she did, watching her reflection with a strange detachment. Her hair had always been her one vanity, the thick waves falling past her waist. Her mother used to brush it every night, telling her it was the color of autumn leaves in the fading light. "I can give you $8 for it," the barber said, running his fingers through the length. "It is fine quality. $8. It was not much, but it would buy food for a few weeks if she was careful. Maybe even allow her to keep the small room she rented above the general store for another month while she figured out what to do next. There were not many options for a woman alone. She could try to find work as a laundress or a cook, but every position seemed already filled with women in similar circumstances. "All right," she whispered, closing her eyes. "Do it." The barber had just raised his scissors when the door opened again, bringing in a gust of warm air and the jingle of spurs. Daniella opened her eyes to see a tall man step inside, removing his hat to reveal dark hair that fell just past his collar. He had the weathered look of someone who spent his days under the sun, with green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Afternoon, Mr. Zimmerman," the barber said, lowering his scissors. "I will be with you shortly." The man called Zimmerman nodded, his gaze falling on Daniella with an intensity that made her want to look away. Instead, she found herself meeting his eyes in the mirror, something passing between them that she could not quite name. "What is happening here?" he asked, his voice deep and measured. "Just a transaction," the barber replied. "The young lady is selling her hair." Zimmerman stepped closer, and Daniella could smell leather and sage and something else distinctly masculine. "Why would you do that?" The question was directed at her, and she felt heat rise to her cheeks. It was humiliating enough without having to explain her circumstances to a stranger. "I do not see how that is any of your business." "Probably not," he agreed, but he did not move away. "But I am making it my business. How much is he paying you?" $8, the barber answered when Daniella remained silent. Zimmerman reached into his pocket and pulled out a leather wallet, counting out bills. "I will give you 20 for it." Daniella stared at him in the mirror. "What? Why would you do that?" "Because you look like you need $20 more than you need a haircut," he said simply, holding out the money. "And because no woman should have to sell parts of herself just to survive." Tears stung her eyes, and she blinked them back furiously. She had not cried when her father died or when her mother followed him. She had not cried when she had to sell their few possessions, or when she realized she was completely alone. But this stranger's unexpected kindness threatened to break through the wall she had built around her heart. "I cannot just take your money," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You are not taking it. You are selling something, and I am buying it." He stepped around the chair to face her directly, and she had to tilt her head back to look at him properly. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the scar that ran along his jaw, the weathered tan of someone who lived his life outdoors. He was perhaps 27 or 28, with broad shoulders and the lean build of a working man. "But here is my condition. You keep your hair and you take the money anyway." "That does not make any sense," Daniella protested. "You would just be giving me money for nothing." "Not nothing. Consider it payment for your time and for your courage. It takes courage to do what you were about to do." He pressed the bills into her hand, closing her fingers around them. "I am Kade Zimmerman. I have a ranch about 5 miles outside town, up in the mountains. If you need work, I could use someone to help with cooking and keeping the house. My last housekeeper left to get married 3 months ago, and the place is falling apart." Daniella looked down at the money in her hand, then back up at this stranger who was offering her more than money. He was offering her dignity and a way forward. "Why are you doing this?" Kade was quiet for a moment, something shadowed passing across his face. "Let us just say I know what it is like to feel like you are at the end of your rope. Someone helped me once when I needed it. Maybe this is my way of passing that along." The barber had been watching this exchange with interest, and now he cleared his throat. "Kade Zimmerman is a good man, miss. Honest and fair. If he is offering you work, you could do a lot worse in this town." Daniella stood up on shaky legs, still clutching the money. Her mind was racing, trying to make sense of this sudden turn of fortune. Everything in her life had been hard for so long that she had almost forgotten what kindness looked like. "I do not even know you." "That is true," Kade acknowledged, "but you can ask anyone in town about me. I have been here 5 years, built up my ranch from nothing. I run cattle mostly, some horses. I am not going to pretend I am perfect, but I am not a danger to you. You would have your own room in the house, and I spend most of my time out with the herd or in the barn. I need help with meals, laundry, basic housekeeping. I will pay you a fair wage, $30 a month plus room and board." $30 a month. It was more than she had dared hope for. With that, she could start saving, maybe even think about a future beyond just surviving day to day. But could she trust him? Could she trust anyone? As if reading her thoughts, Kade said, "You can come out for a day first, see the place, see if it suits you. I will take you there and back to town in my wagon. No commitment until you decide it is right for you." Daniella realized she was still holding her hair gathered over her shoulder, and she let it fall loose down her back. The weight of it felt different now, not like a commodity to be sold, but like something she had chosen to keep. "All right, I will come see the ranch." A smile crossed Kade's face, transforming it from merely handsome to genuinely warm. "Good. Are you free now? I was just coming into town for supplies, but I can take you out, show you around, and have you back before dark." She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Everything was happening so fast, and she felt dizzy with it all. Just moments ago, she had been ready to cut off her hair out of desperation, and now she was agreeing to go with a strange man to his ranch in the mountains. But something in his eyes told her she could trust him. Or maybe it was just that she had run out of other options. They left the barbershop together, stepping back into the afternoon heat. Kade's wagon was tied up outside the general store, a sturdy rig pulled by 2 horses that looked well cared for. He helped her up onto the seat with a gentleness that surprised her, then climbed up beside her and took the reins. As they started up the mountain road, Daniella found her voice. "How did you know I was not just selling my hair for extra money? That I actually needed it?" Kade kept his eyes on the road ahead. I saw it in your eyes, that look of someone who is down to their last choice. I have seen it before in the mirror, mostly a few years back. What happened to you? He was quiet for so long she thought he would not answer. Then he said, I lost my family in a fire when I was 23. My parents, my younger sister. I was away working on another ranch at the time. When I came back, there was nothing left but ashes. I fell apart after that, drank too much, gambled away what little they had left me. I ended up in a mining camp further north, ready to just disappear into the bottom of a bottle. What changed? An old Mexican man who ran the cantina sat me down one night and told me my family would be ashamed to see me wasting my life. He gave me enough money for a fresh start and told me to go make something of myself. I thought about it for a week, then came here to Weaverville. Bought some land cheap, built a cabin, started with just a handful of cattle. It has not been easy, but it has been worth it. He glanced at her. That old man died 2 years ago. I never got the chance to fully pay him back, but I figured I could honor his memory by helping someone else the way he helped me. Daniella felt something shift in her chest. I am sorry about your family. Thank you. What about you? How did you end up in Weaverville? So she told him. About her father, who had dreamed of striking it rich in the California gold fields, about how they had moved from Ohio when she was 16, full of hope and plans. About the years of disappointment as the gold proved elusive, and they scratched out a living from the less glamorous work of actual mining. About his death in a collapse that could have been prevented if the mine owner had spent money on proper supports instead of lining his own pockets. About her mother's slow decline afterward, how she seemed to lose the will to live and simply faded away. I tried to find work, she said, staring at her hands folded in her lap. But I have no real skills except reading and writing, which my mother insisted on teaching me. Nobody needs a clerk or a teacher here. Everyone needs laundresses and cooks, but those positions were all filled. I sewed for a while, but there is not enough call for it to make a living. I have been selling off our things piece by piece, but everything of value is gone now. I was down to just my hair. How old are you? Kade asked. 21. Old enough to know better than to end up in this situation, I suppose. That is not what I meant. I just wanted to make sure you were old enough to make your own choices. 21 is plenty old for that. He guided the horses around a bend in the road, and the forest opened up to reveal a stunning view of the valley below, with the Trinity River snaking through it like a silver ribbon. We are almost there. The ranch came into view a few minutes later, and Daniella felt her breath catch. It was more substantial than she had expected. The main house was a solid log structure with a covered porch, weathered but well maintained. There was a large barn, a couple of outbuildings, and corrals where horses and cattle milled about. The setting was beautiful, nestled against the mountainside with pine trees all around and a creek running through the property. "This is yours?" she asked. "Every inch of it, 40 acres of mountain land." "It is not much compared to the big cattle operations further south, but it is mine, built with my own hands and sweat." There was pride in his voice, the kind that came from real accomplishment. "Come on, I will show you inside." The house was indeed in need of a woman's touch, as the saying went. It was clean enough but sparse and purely functional. The main room held a stone fireplace, a worn sofa, and a table with chairs. The kitchen was well equipped but showed signs of neglect, with dust on the shelves and a stack of unwashed dishes by the basin. There were 2 bedrooms, one clearly Kade's and the other set up as a guest room with a simple bed, dresser, and small window overlooking the mountains. "This would be your room if you decide to stay," Kade said, standing in the doorway. "It is not fancy, but it is private and secure." There is a lock on the inside of the door, which I think is important for you to know." Daniella walked around the small space, touching the quilt on the bed, looking out the window. She could see herself here. More than that, she could see herself being safe here, having a purpose again. "What would my hours be?" "Whatever you need them to be to get the work done. I am usually up before dawn and out working until evening. I would need breakfast early, something I can take with me at midday, and dinner when I come back. The rest is just keeping the house livable. Laundry once a week, basic cleaning, maybe some mending. I am not picky about much. And you live here alone." "I have 2 men who work for me, but they stay in the bunkhouse beyond the barn. They are good men, brothers from Texas. Been with me 3 years now. They take their meals here sometimes, but mostly they fend for themselves." Kade leaned against the door frame. "I know this is a lot to take in. Why do you not think about it? I can take you back to town now and you can let me know in a couple of days." But Daniella knew her answer already. This was more than she could have hoped for, a real chance to rebuild her life. "I do not need to think about it. I want the job." Kade straightened, his expression serious. "Are you sure? I do not want you to feel pressured." "I am sure. When would you want me to start?" "Would tomorrow be too soon? I can pick you up in town first thing in the morning, help you move whatever things you have. I do not have much. A trunk with some clothes, a few books that were my mother's. That is about it." She looked around the room again. "Tomorrow would be fine." They rode back to town in comfortable silence as the sun started its descent toward the mountains. Daniella could not quite believe how much her life had changed in the span of a few hours. She looked down at the money still clutched in her hand, $20 that Kade had given her for nothing but to preserve her dignity. "Mr. Zimmerman," she said as they reached the outskirts of Weaverville. "Kade, please." "Kade, then. I want you to know that I will work hard for you. I will earn my keep. I have no doubt about that." He pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the general store where she rented her room. "I will be here at sunrise. We can get you settled and you can start whenever you are ready." Daniella climbed down from the wagon, then turned back. "Thank you for everything. I do not know why you helped me, but I am grateful." Kade's expression was soft in the fading light. "Everyone deserves a chance, Daniella. I have a feeling you are going to do just fine." She watched him drive away, then climbed the narrow stairs to her rented room. It was barely more than a closet with a cot and a washstand, and she had been dreading the end of the month when she would not be able to pay for even this. Now, she carefully counted out enough money to settle her account with the store owner and tucked the rest away. For the first time in months, she went to bed without the gnawing anxiety of not knowing where her next meal would come from. Sleep came easier than it had in a long time. Kade arrived just as the sun was breaking over the eastern mountains, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold. Daniella was ready, her trunk packed and sitting by the door. He carried it down to the wagon like it weighed nothing, securing it in the back. The ride to the ranch felt different in the morning light, full of possibility instead of desperate hope. Daniella found herself relaxing, asking questions about the ranch and the area. Kade answered easily, pointing out landmarks and telling her about the challenges of mountain ranching. "The winters are hard up here," he said. "Snow can get deep, and we get cut off from town sometimes for weeks. That is why I try to stock up on supplies in the fall. But the summers make up for it. There is nowhere more beautiful than these mountains when everything is green." When they reached the ranch, Kade helped her carry her trunk to her room, then gave her space to unpack and settle in. Daniella hung her few dresses in the small wardrobe, placed her mother's books on the windowsill, and spread out her own quilt on the bed. It was not much, but it was more than she had dared hope for. She found Kade in the kitchen, attempting to make coffee and failing somewhat spectacularly. "Let me do that," she said, shooing him away from the stove. Why do you not show me what supplies you have, and I will figure out what to make for breakfast? The pantry was better stocked than she expected, with sacks of flour, cornmeal, dried beans, salt pork, and even some eggs from chickens she had not noticed the day before. Within an hour, she had bacon sizzling, eggs frying, and fresh biscuits in the oven. The smell filled the house, and she saw Kade's appreciative expression as he sat down at the table. "I had forgotten what real cooking smells like," he said. "I have been living on burned bacon and hard bread for months." Daniella served the food and sat down across from him, feeling strange about eating at the same table as her employer. But Kade did not seem to think anything of it, bowing his head briefly before eating. The meal was comfortable, and they talked about the day's work ahead. "I need to ride out to the north pasture today, check on some cattle that are due to calve soon. I will probably be gone most of the day," Kade said. "You can take your time settling in, exploring the place. The chickens need feeding, and there is a vegetable garden behind the house that could use some attention if you are interested in that sort of thing." "I can do that. My mother kept a garden in Ohio. I have missed having one." After breakfast, Kade headed out, and Daniella was left alone in the house. She started with the dishes, scrubbing them clean and putting them away in the cupboard. Then she moved through the house, sweeping floors, dusting surfaces, opening windows to let in fresh air. It felt good to work, to have purpose again. The garden was overgrown with weeds, but she could see the potential in it. There were tomato plants struggling to survive, bean poles with nothing growing on them, and what looked like it had once been a neat row of herbs now gone wild. She spent the afternoon pulling weeds, watering, staking up the tomatoes. Her back ached and her hands got dirty, but it was the good kind of tired, the kind that came from productive work. She had dinner ready when Kade returned just before sunset, his clothes dusty and his face showing fatigue. He washed up at the basin outside, then came in to find stew simmering on the stove and fresh bread cooling on the counter. "This is the best thing I have smelled in my entire life," he said, collapsing into a chair. "How did you manage all this in one day?" "I used to help my mother cook for mining crews. This is nothing compared to feeding 30 hungry men." She ladled stew into bowls and set one in front of him. "How was your day?" "Long but good. Got 3 new calves, all healthy. Saw some tracks that might be a mountain lion, so I will need to keep an eye on that." He ate with obvious pleasure, and Daniella felt a warm satisfaction at his enjoyment. "What about you? Did you get settled?" "I did. I also started working on the garden. It needs a lot of help, but I think I can save most of it." They fell into an easy routine over the following days. Daniella would wake early to make breakfast, pack food for Kade to take with him, then spend her day cleaning, cooking, tending the garden, and gradually bringing order to the neglected house. Kade worked from dawn to dusk, coming back tired but always appreciative of the hot meals and clean house waiting for him. He was different from any man she had known. Her father had been a dreamer, always chasing the next big strike, never satisfied with what he had. The miners she had known were rough, often crude, viewing women as either saints or property. But Kade was grounded, practical, and treated her with a respectful kindness that she had not experienced before. He listened when she talked, asked her opinions on things around the ranch, and never made her feel like she was less than him despite being her employer. 2 weeks after she arrived, Kade's ranch hands came to the house for dinner. The brothers he had mentioned, Tom and Samuel Wright, were in their mid-30s, weather-beaten and quiet. They were polite to Daniella, thanking her for the meal with genuine gratitude. "We have been eating Tom's cooking for 3 months," Samuel said. "This is like heaven." Tom elbowed him. "My cooking kept you alive, did it not?" "Barely. Samuel shot back, but there was affection in the banter. Daniella found herself laughing, something she had not done much of lately. It felt good to be around people again, to be part of something instead of isolated in her grief and struggle. After the brothers left, Kade helped her clean up, drying dishes while she washed. "They liked you," he said. "Tom told me you remind him of his sister back in Texas." He meant it as a compliment. "They seem like good men." "They are. Loyal, hardworking. I am lucky to have them." He set down the dish he was drying. "Daniella, I want you to know that you are doing more than I expected. The house has not been this comfortable since before my family died. You have made it feel like a home again." There was something in his voice that made her look up at him. In the lamplight, his face was softer, and she noticed things she had not before. The way his hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck, the laugh lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled more than he let on. The way he looked at her, with a warmth that went beyond employer and employee. "I am glad I can help," she said softly. "You gave me a chance when I had none. This is the least I can do." "It is more than that, though. You could have just done the minimum, but you put care into everything. I notice it." He paused. "I appreciate it." The moment stretched between them, charged with something unnamed. Then Kade cleared his throat and stepped back. "I should let you get some rest. Tomorrow is another long day." Daniella watched him go to his room, her heart beating faster than it should. She told herself it was just gratitude she felt, nothing more. He had saved her, given her work and a place to stay. Of course she felt warmly toward him. It did not mean anything more than that. But as she lay in her bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she knew she was lying to herself. She was starting to care about Kade Zimmerman in a way that had nothing to do with gratitude, and everything to do with the kind of person he was. The way he treated his animals with gentleness, how he spoke respectfully to everyone regardless of their station, the quiet strength in everything he did. The way he had seen her worth when she could not see it herself. The summer days grew longer and hotter. Daniella's garden flourished under her care, providing fresh vegetables for their meals. She canned and preserved what they could not eat fresh, stocking the pantry for the winter Kade had warned her about. The house transformed from a bachelor's dwelling into a real home, with curtains she sewed for the windows, wildflowers in jars on the table, and the smell of baking bread filling the air. Kade started coming back to the house for lunch instead of staying out all day, and they would sit together on the porch, eating sandwiches and talking. He told her about his dreams for the ranch, wanting to expand the herd, maybe get into horse breeding. She told him about the books she loved, the places she had dreamed of seeing when she was younger. "Have you ever thought about leaving Weaverville?" he asked one afternoon. "Going back east or to San Francisco?" "I have nowhere to go back to," she said, "and San Francisco seems overwhelming. I like it here. The mountains feel safe somehow." "I know what you mean. That is why I stayed here instead of going to one of the big valley operations where I might have made more money. This place feels right." He looked at her. "I am glad you like it here too." One evening in late July, a storm rolled in fast and fierce, the kind that came suddenly in the mountains. Daniella was in the kitchen preparing dinner when the first drops started falling. Within minutes, it was a deluge, rain hammering the roof and lightning splitting the sky. Kade burst through the door, soaked to the skin. "Tom and Samuel are securing the barn. I need to check on the horses in the near pasture." "You cannot go back out in this," Daniella protested, but he was already grabbing a rain slicker from the hook by the door. "I have to. One of the mares gets spooked by thunder. If she bolts, she could hurt herself or the foal she is carrying." He paused at the door. "I will be back as soon as I can." He disappeared into the storm, and Daniella stood at the window, watching lightning illuminate the landscape in brief, brilliant flashes. She tried to go back to cooking, but she could not focus, worry gnawing at her. The storm seemed to be getting worse, and she found herself pacing, jumping at every crack of thunder. An hour passed. Then another. The storm was not letting up, and there was no sign of Kade. Daniella's worry turned to fear. What if he had been thrown from his horse? What if he was hurt, lying out there in the rain? She was about to do something foolish like go looking for him herself when she heard hoofbeats. Relief flooded through her as Kade came through the door again, even more soaked than before. But this time he was limping, favoring his right leg. "What happened?" she demanded, rushing to him. "Horse spooked through me. I am fine, just bruised." But his face was pale, and when he tried to walk, he nearly went down. Daniella got under his shoulder, supporting his weight. "Come on, let us get you to your room." She helped him down the hallway, her heart pounding. Once in his room, she helped him sit on the bed. "Where does it hurt?" "My leg, my ribs. I hit some rocks when I fell." He tried to smile. "I have had worse. Let me see." Without waiting for permission, she began helping him out of his soaking shirt. There were already bruises forming on his ribs, dark purple marks that made her wince. His leg was worse, a gash on his thigh that was bleeding through his pants. "I need to clean this," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I will be right back." She rushed to the kitchen, grabbing clean cloths, water, and the bottle of whiskey she had seen in the cupboard. When she returned, Kade had managed to remove his boots and was lying back on the bed, his eyes closed. "This is going to hurt," she warned, pouring whiskey over the wound. Kade hissed but did not cry out, his jaw clenched. She worked quickly, cleaning the gash and wrapping it with strips of cloth. "I do not think it needs stitches, but you are going to be sore for a few days." "I have been sore before," he said. "Did you find the mare?" "Yes, got her and the others into the barn. They are safe." He opened his eyes, looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Thank you for taking care of me." "You took care of me first," she said softly. "This is nothing compared to what you did for me. This is not nothing." He reached out and took her hand. "You could have just let me deal with it myself. Instead, you were worried about me." When was the last time someone worried about me? Daniella realized she was still holding his hand, that they were very close, and that she did not want to move away. "Someone should worry about you. You take care of everyone else." The storm continued to rage outside, but inside this small room, everything felt still and charged. Kade's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "Daniella, I need to tell you something." "What?" "You are worth more." When she looked confused, he continued. "That day in the barbershop when you were going to sell your hair, I said you were worth more than that, and I meant it. Not just worth more than $8 or $20 or whatever price could be put on your hair. You are worth more than you know. You are smart and capable and kind. You deserve to be valued for who you are, not just what you can do or what you have to sell." Tears filled her eyes. "Kade, I know I am your employer and this probably is not appropriate, but I do not care anymore. I need you to know that you matter. Not just as someone who works for me, but as yourself, as Daniella." His voice dropped lower. "And I need you to know that you have become important to me in ways that go beyond work." "You have become important to me too," she whispered. "I tried not to let it happen, tried to keep things professional, but I failed. Every day, I find myself caring more about you, wanting to make you smile, wanting to know your thoughts, missing you when you are out with the herd." Kade sat up slightly, wincing at the movement but not letting go of her hand. "I think I started falling in love with you that first day, when you were so determined to do what you had to do to survive. You had this strength in you, even when you thought you had nothing left. I saw it then, and I see it every day now." "I love you," Daniella said, the words coming out before she could think about them. I love your kindness and your strength and the way you treat everyone with respect. I love how hard you work and how you never give up. I love how you see the good in people, even when they cannot see it themselves. Kade pulled her closer, his free hand coming up to cup her face. May I kiss you? Instead of answering, Daniella closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but it deepened quickly as months of unspoken feelings poured into it. His hand tangled in her hair, that long chestnut hair she had almost sold, and she felt him smile against her lips. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Kade rested his forehead against hers. I was not sure if you felt the same way. I thought maybe I was just imagining it. I was afraid to hope, she admitted. You have already done so much for me. I did not want to assume you felt anything beyond kindness. It stopped being just kindness a long time ago. He kissed her again, softer this time. I know we should probably wait, court properly, but I do not want to wait. I am too old and have seen too much loss to waste time. I want you in my life, Daniella, not as my housekeeper but as my partner, my wife if you will have me. Daniella pulled back to look at him. Are you asking me to marry you? Yes. I know it is fast and maybe you need more time, but I know my own heart. I love you. I want to build a life with you, here on this ranch. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to share everything with you, the good days and the hard ones. He hesitated. But I will understand if you need time to think about it. I do not need time, she said. Yes, yes, I will marry you. The joy that lit up his face was worth every hardship she had endured to get to this moment. He kissed her again, pulling her down beside him on the bed, holding her close despite his injuries. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other's arms as the storm gradually passed, and the night settled in quiet and peaceful. They were married 3 weeks later in a small ceremony at the church in Weaverville. Tom and Samuel stood as witnesses, along with the barber who had been there that fateful day. Daniella wore her best dress, and Kade had gotten a new suit for the occasion. The preacher kept the ceremony short and simple, and when Kade kissed his bride, there was not a dry eye in the small gathering. They held a simple reception at the ranch, with food Daniella had prepared and music provided by Tom's surprisingly good fiddle playing. As the sun set over the mountains, Kade pulled Daniella into a dance on the porch, holding her close. Mrs. Zimmerman, he said, trying out the name. I like the sound of that, she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. So do I, he kissed the top of her head. Are you happy? Happier than I ever thought possible. A few months ago, I thought my life was over. I had nothing and no hope. Now I have everything. We have everything, he corrected. This is ours now, together. That night, after the guests had left and they were finally alone, Kade carried Daniella over the threshold of their bedroom. He set her down gently, his hands trembling slightly as he began to undo the buttons of her dress. I have never done this before, he admitted. I want to do right by you. Neither have I, she said, helping him with the buttons. We will figure it out together. And they did, finding each other in the darkness, learning the language of touch and connection, expressing their love in the most intimate way possible. It was tender and awkward and perfect, and afterward they lay tangled together, hearts still racing. I love you, Kade whispered into her hair. I love you too, she replied, tracing patterns on his chest. Thank you for seeing my worth when I could not. You always had worth. I just helped you remember it. The first year of their marriage was not without challenges. The winter was indeed harsh, with snow drifting up to the windows and temperatures that made going outside treacherous. But inside the house, there was warmth and love. They spent long evenings by the fireplace, reading aloud to each other, playing cards, talking about their dreams for the future. Kade taught Daniella to ride, and she proved to be a natural. Soon she was accompanying him on rides around the ranch, helping with some of the lighter work. She learned about cattle and horses, how to spot illness, when to call for help. Kade learned about gardening and preserving food, sometimes helping her in the evenings with canning or pickling. They were partners in every sense of the word, making decisions together, supporting each other through difficulties. When a hard freeze killed half the herd one brutal February night, Daniella held Kade as he grieved the loss. When she came down with influenza that spring, he barely left her side, nursing her back to health with a devotion that moved her to tears. In late May, Daniella realized her monthly courses had not come in some time. At first, she thought it was just the stress of the hard winter, but as other symptoms appeared, the truth became undeniable. She was pregnant. She told Kade one evening after dinner, simply taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby." The look of wonder on his face was something she would never forget. "Are you sure?" "As sure as I can be without a doctor. I think I am about 2 months along." Kade pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "A baby. We are going to have a baby." Then he pulled back, worried. "Are you all right? You need to sit down. Should you be working so hard?" She laughed at his sudden concern. "I am fine. Women have been having babies forever. I am not going to break." But Kade was insistent on her taking it easier, doing more of the household work himself when he came in from the ranch. Daniella found it both endearing and frustrating, but she let him fuss over her because she knew it came from love. As her belly grew through the summer and into fall, Kade talked to it constantly, telling their unborn child about the ranch, the mountains, the life they would have. He built a cradle in the barn, working on it every evening, sanding the wood smooth and carving intricate designs into the headboard. "My father made a cradle for me," he told Daniella one night as she watched him work. "It was one of the few things that survived the fire, but I gave it to a young couple when I left. I wanted to make one for our child, something that could be passed down." Daniella ran her hand over the smooth wood, touched by the care he was putting into it. "It is beautiful. Our baby is lucky to have you as a father. I just hope I can be a good one. I never thought I would get this chance after losing my family. I never thought I would have a family again. You are going to be wonderful," she assured him. "You are going to teach them about the land, about integrity, about treating people with kindness. What more could a child need?" The baby came on a cold January morning in 1884, as snow fell softly outside the windows. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when both Kade and the doctor he had brought from town feared for Daniella's life. But she was strong, stronger than anyone had given her credit for, and when the cry finally rang out, it was the sweetest sound Kade had ever heard. "It is a boy," the doctor announced, placing the squirming infant on Daniella's chest. Daniella looked down at her son, at his tiny red face and shock of dark hair, and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known possible. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "We have been waiting for you." Kade was crying unashamedly, touching his son's tiny hand with one finger. "He is perfect. You are perfect." He kissed Daniella's forehead. Thank you for him, for giving me this." They named him James Kade Zimmerman after Kade's father. Jamie, as they called him, was a healthy, loud baby who demanded attention and gave love freely. Watching Kade with their son was one of Daniella's greatest joys. He was a natural father, patient and gentle, singing off key lullabies and walking the floor on sleepless nights without complaint. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. With Daniella's help in managing the household accounts, they were able to expand the herd and build better facilities. Tom and Samuel became like family, uncles to Jamie who spoiled him terribly. The vegetable garden Daniella had rescued that first summer now provided more than they could use, and she started selling preserves and vegetables in town, bringing in extra income. When Jamie was 2, Daniella found herself pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier, and in the spring of 1886 they welcomed a daughter with her mother's chestnut hair and her father's green eyes. They named her Sarah, after Kade's lost sister. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. The children grew, the ranch prospered, and Kade and Daniella's love deepened with each passing year. They had their challenges. There were droughts and hard winters, times when money was tight and worry kept them up at night. But they faced everything together, and somehow that made even the hard times bearable. On their 10th anniversary, Kade took Daniella back to Weaverville, to the barbershop where they had first met. The old barber was still there, grayer but still cutting hair. "I remember you too," he said with a smile. "Best transaction I never made. How is life treating you? Better than we could have dreamed," Kade said, his arm around Daniella's waist. "We wanted to thank you for being there that day." "I did not do anything except watch," the barber protested. "You told me I was a good man," Kade said. "That gave me the courage to do what I did, so thank you." They walked through town afterward, Daniella's hand in Kade's. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had not walked into that shop that day?" she asked. "All the time," Kade admitted. "I think about how easily I could have missed you, how close we came to never meeting. It makes me grateful for every day we have." "I think about it too. I think about how I was ready to cut off my hair, to sell pieces of myself just to survive. And then you walked in and told me I was worth more." She stopped walking, turning to face him. "You saved me that day, Kade, not just from hunger or desperation, but from forgetting my own value." "You saved me too," he said. "I was going through the motions of living but not really alive. You brought joy back into my life. You reminded me what it felt like to hope, to dream, to love." They kissed there on the main street of Weaverville, not caring who saw. They were no longer the desperate woman and the lonely rancher who had met in a barbershop a decade ago. They were partners, lovers, parents, and best friends. They had built a life together from nothing but determination and love. Jamie grew into a strong, capable young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Sarah inherited her mother's fierce independence and her father's kind heart. When Jamie was 18, Kade started teaching him more about running the ranch, preparing to eventually hand over the reins. "Not that I am going anywhere anytime soon," Kade assured Daniella one night as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "But I want him to be ready. I want him to know that this place, everything we built, it is his legacy." "Our legacy," Daniella corrected. "And not just the ranch. The real legacy is what you have taught them about integrity, about hard work, about treating people with dignity." "We taught them that," Kade said. "You just as much as me." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, holding hands like they always did. After 25 years of marriage, they still reached for each other constantly, still found comfort in the simple touch of skin on skin. "You remember what you said to me that first day?" Daniella asked. "In the barber shop, I remember every word of that day. You said I was worth more than I knew. You said I deserved to be valued for who I was, not what I could sell or what I could do." She looked at him. "You were right, but you know what I have learned." "What?" "That you were worth more too. You did not see it in yourself, the same way I did not see it in myself. You thought you were just a man who had built a ranch, who had survived loss. But you were so much more. You were the kind of man who saw someone in need and helped without hesitation. The kind of man who builds a home, not just a house. The kind of man who loves with his whole heart and never holds back." Kade's eyes were bright with emotion. You made me into that man." "No," Daniella said firmly. "I helped you remember who you already were. Just like you helped me remember who I was." They had 2 more children over the years, another son and daughter, filling the house with noise and love and chaos. Kade expanded the house to accommodate their growing family, adding rooms and a larger kitchen. The ranch continued to prosper under his careful management and Daniella's smart handling of the finances. Tom and Samuel both eventually married, bringing their wives to the ranch and building homes nearby. The community they created was small but close-knit, everyone helping everyone else. Daniella became known throughout Trinity County for her preserves and her healing knowledge, helping deliver babies and tend to the sick when the doctor was too far away. Kade became a respected voice in the ranching community, known for his fair dealing and his willingness to help those starting out. More than once, he extended credit or outright help to young ranchers struggling to get started, always remembering the Mexican cantina owner who had given him his chance. "You are giving away too much," Daniella would sometimes tease him, though she never actually stopped him. "We have enough," Kade would reply. "More than enough, and money does not do anyone any good sitting in a bank when it could be changing someone's life." As they grew older, their children grown and starting families of their own, Kade and Daniella found themselves back where they started, just the 2 of them in the house. But it was different now. They were not lonely or desperate. They were content, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived. On a warm summer evening in 1912, 30 years after that fateful day in the barbershop, they sat on the porch as the sun set over the mountains. Kade was 67 now, his dark hair gone silver, but still strong and capable. Daniella was 51, her chestnut hair now streaked with gray, wearing it long down her back like she always had. "You ever regret not cutting your hair that day?" Kade asked, reaching over to run his fingers through it like he had done countless times over the years. "Never," Daniella said. "You gave me so much more than hair. You gave me my life back. You gave me love and purpose and a family. You gave me everything I had stopped believing I could have." "You gave me all of that too," Kade said. "I was existing before you, not living. You taught me how to live again, how to love again, how to hope again." "We saved each other," Daniella said simply. "That is what love does." They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching their grandchildren play in the yard. Jamie's oldest son was teaching his younger siblings to ride, just as Kade had taught Jamie so many years ago. Sarah's daughter was helping in the garden, learning the same skills Daniella had passed on to her mother. The legacy they had built was not just the prosperous ranch or the beautiful house or the thriving family. It was the values they had instilled, the love they had demonstrated, the example they had set of what partnership and commitment truly meant. "I would do it all again," Kade said suddenly. "Every hard winter, every challenge, every moment of worry. I would do it all again for this, for you, for the life we built." "So would I," Daniella agreed. "Though maybe with a little less drama at the beginning," Kade laughed. "Where would be the fun in that?" As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they went inside together, heading to the bedroom they had shared for 30 years. The house was full of memories, every room holding stories of laughter and tears, joy and sorrow, all the moments that made up a life fully lived. They lay in bed, Daniella's head on Kade's shoulder, his arm around her waist. This was how they fell asleep every night, still finding comfort in proximity, still needing the reassurance of each other's presence. "I love you," Kade whispered into the darkness. "Then, now, and always." "I love you too," Daniella replied. "Thank you for seeing my worth when I had forgotten it existed. Thank you for showing me that my life was not over, that I could still hope and dream and love." He kissed her forehead. Thank you for saying yes all those years ago. They drifted off to sleep, secure in the love they had built and the life they had created. From that desperate moment in a barbershop to this peaceful night in their mountain ranch, they had traveled a long road together, and every step of that road had been worth it. The years continued to pass gently. Kade and Daniella aged gracefully, still active in the ranch operations, though increasingly letting Jamie take over the day-to-day management. They became the patriarch and matriarch of a large, loving family, with grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren filling the house during holidays and celebrations. Sarah became a teacher in Weaverville, married to a kind schoolteacher from back east. She often brought her students to the ranch for lessons about agriculture and mountain life. Their other children scattered but never far, all staying within the Trinity County area, drawn back to the land and the life their parents had built. On their 40th anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. There must have been 50 people there, children running everywhere, food covering every surface, love and laughter filling the air. Jamie stood up to make a toast. To my parents, who taught me what love really means. Not the easy kind of love that exists when everything is perfect, but the hard kind that persists through challenges and grows stronger with time. They showed me that partnership means facing life together, supporting each other, and never giving up. Mom, Dad, thank you for the example you set. Thank you for building something lasting, something that will continue long after we are all gone. Kade pulled Daniella close, emotions overwhelming him. Speech, she whispered. Just this, he said, standing and pulling her up with him. My beautiful wife, 40 years ago I walked into a barbershop and found you ready to sell your hair just to survive. I told you then that you were worth more, and I have spent every day since trying to show you just how much more. You are my partner, my best friend, the love of my life. You took a broken man and made him whole. You took a house and made it a home. You took a dream and made it reality. I love you more today than I did the day we married, and I will love you even more tomorrow. Here is to 40 more years. There was not a dry eye in the place as he kissed her, and the cheers and applause went on for minutes. Later that night, after everyone had gone home or gone to bed, Kade and Daniella once again found themselves on the porch, watching the stars. 40 years, Daniella mused. It feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once. I know what you mean. Sometimes I still see that scared young woman in the barbershop, and I want to tell her that everything is going to be all right, that she is going to have more than she ever dreamed possible. What would you tell the man who walked into that barbershop? Kade thought about it. I would tell him to trust his instincts, that the best decision he will ever make is to help that woman, not because of what she will become to him, but because it is simply the right thing to do. And then I would tell him to hold on tight, because the ride is going to be incredible. They sat in silence for a while, then Daniella said, I need to tell you something. What? I kept it. That day, after you gave me the money and told me to keep my hair, I went back to my room and I cried. And I took a few strands of my hair and I tied them with a ribbon and I put them in my mother's Bible. I have kept them all these years. Why? As a reminder of where I started, of what you saved me from, of the moment my life changed. Sometimes when things are hard, I look at those strands of hair and I remember that desperate girl who thought she had nothing. And I remember the man who saw her worth when she could not see it herself. Kade was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I have something to confess too. That $20 I gave you, it was every dollar I had in the world. I was supposed to use it to buy supplies in town that day. After I gave it to you, I had to borrow from Tom and Samuel to get what I needed. Daniella sat up, staring at him. What? You never told me that. Kade, you could have been in serious trouble. I know. But in that moment, it did not matter. You needed it more than I did. I figured I would work something out, and I did." He smiled. "Best investment I ever made. You gave me everything you had. And you gave me everything in return." I would say that worked out pretty well. They stayed on the porch late into the night, talking and remembering, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances and built something beautiful and lasting. Kade lived to see his 85th birthday, still sharp and active right up until the end. He passed peacefully in his sleep on a spring morning in 1930, with Daniella holding his hand and his children and grandchildren gathered around. His last words were, "I love you, Daniella. Thank you for the best 48 years of my life." Daniella grieved deeply, but found strength in the family they had built and the memories they had made. She lived another 8 years, active and engaged, still tending her garden and helping with the great-grandchildren. She passed on a summer evening in 1938, sitting in her chair on the porch, looking out at the mountains she had loved. They were buried together on a hillside overlooking the ranch, under a large pine tree. The gravestone reads simply, "Kade and Daniella Zimmerman." Together they built a legacy of love. The ranch stayed in the family, passed down through the generations. The house Kade built still stood, expanded and updated but essentially the same. The story of how they met, of the desperate woman selling her hair and the cowboy who bought it back and told her she was worth more, became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. In the family Bible, alongside birth records and marriage certificates, someone had preserved a few strands of chestnut hair, tied with a faded ribbon. There was a note in Daniella's handwriting that said, "This is where love began, when someone saw my worth and taught me to see it too." May we all be so lucky as to find someone who sees our true value. And in the barn, still in use after all these years, there was a cradle carved with intricate designs, passed down from child to child, generation to generation. It had rocked dozens of babies to sleep, each one a continuation of the legacy Kade and Daniella had started with nothing but determination, kindness, and love. The mountains still stood tall around the ranch, the creek still ran clear, and the land still provided. But more than the physical legacy, what lasted was the lesson they had taught everyone who knew their story. That worth was not determined by circumstances or possessions. That love could bloom in the most unexpected places. That kindness rippled outward, changing lives in ways that could never be fully measured. That a man could walk into a barbershop and change two lives forever with a simple act of compassion. That a woman could find strength she did not know she had when given the chance. That together, two broken people could build something whole and beautiful and lasting. Their love story became part of the fabric of Weaverville, spoken of with reverence and joy. The barbershop, though it changed hands many times, always had a small plaque on the wall that read, "In 1882, in this spot, Kade Zimmerman met Daniella Reed and told her she was worth more. Their love story began here and blessed our community for generations." Young couples would sometimes visit the graveside on the hillside, asking for blessings on their own marriages, hoping to find even a fraction of what Kade and Daniella had shared. The ranch became a symbol of what was possible when two people committed to each other fully, facing life's challenges as partners. And somewhere in the mountains of Trinity County, California, where the pine trees whispered in the wind and the creek sang its eternal song, the spirit of their love remained. Not as ghosts or hauntings, but as something more powerful and lasting. As proof that true love existed, that kindness mattered, that seeing the worth in another person could change the entire trajectory of a life. From that moment in a barbershop when a cowboy looked at a desperate woman and saw not her poverty but her value, when he bought back her hair and her dignity and offered her hope, two lives had been transformed. And from that transformation had come a family, a legacy, and a love story that would be remembered and cherished for generations to come. It was a testament to the power of compassion, the importance of seeing worth in others, and the beautiful, lasting things that could be built when two people chose to love each other with dedication and devotion through all of life's seasons. Their story was not of fairy tale perfection, but of real love, the kind that persisted through hardship, grew deeper with time, and left the world better than it found it. And in the end, that was the greatest legacy of all. Not the prosperous ranch or the large family, but the example of what love could be when it was given freely, nurtured carefully, and cherished always. Kade and Daniella Zimmerman had shown everyone who knew them what it meant to truly love and to be loved in return. And that story, that beautiful, improbable love story that started in a barbershop in 1882, would live on forever in the hearts and memories of all who heard it. The end.